This episode of Test Drive is made possible by RateMyEV.com. Almost exactly 3 years ago today, I first and most recently drove the Kia EV6. But back then, when I first introduced you to James, I had only driven a couple other compact crossover electric vehicles. But fast forward to today, and we've driven most of them that are on the market. So there's quite a bit of change in the landscape when it comes to this segment. So how does the Kia EV6 fare now with this facelift? That's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to go over everything you need to know about this 2025 Kia EV6 GT-Line, why you might want to consider it, some of the reasons why you might not want to, and ultimately how it stacks up to the competition. Let's get started. Alright, first off, we need to talk about pricing. This vehicle has seen about a $4,000 price increase here in Canada since we featured it 3 years ago. Now, to be fair, there is more. It's a facelift, there's extra tech, and the major change between the one that I drove back in 2022 was the addition of the GT-Line package. Now, here in Canada, this is technically a land all-wheel drive with the GT-Line package. In the US, it is a GT-Line trim. It's the same car, just offered a little differently in the two markets. But when we drove the Kia EV6 before, we had the long-range version. There wasn't this land, wind, and stuff that they've adopted when the EV9 was launched. So price has gone up, and then the as-tested price is like $7,000 or $8,000 more than it was when we drove it back then. But that's because we have the GT-Line package on here, which does add some cost. It is a trim that sits above what we had before. Now, one other thing to note, we've got the beautiful nebular blue paint on here. Such a gorgeous color. It is different from the EV9 blue that you can get, and it is different from the previous pre-facelift version that had more of a darker blue. So this, I'm getting a lot of compliments on. Absolutely love it. Great job, Kia, for offering it, and thank you for configuring it on this press car. All right, so as I mentioned, this is a facelift for 2025. We have some updated exterior bits to talk about, including the new LED star map daytime running lights. Much different than the previous generation that had sort of a two-bar line that ran across the top and bottom of the light system. This looks really cool, very distinctive, and it will let you know right away that this is the EV6. Plus, with the GT line, we have a secondary light bar that goes in between the two main headlight units, giving you a full width-to-width LED daytime running light. Looks pretty cool. The bumper's been redesigned, new wheels for all different trims. We also have new side molding on this vehicle. And around back, we have the continuation of that star map taillight LED system. Looks pretty cool. The center brake light has been integrated into the width-to-width LED light bar. And then we also have the rear bumper that has been updated. The GT line also gets some specific bits, like the wheels. The front end is different, giving you a little bit more of an aggressive look to this because you want to have something that looks a little bit sporty, and I think it does. Definitely takes this up a level from the previous pre-facelift version. Now, before we dive into the technical specifications, the other major change for 2025 is NACS, the North American Charging Standard Port. We have gone away with what we have become familiar with over the last 8 years here on Test Drive. This is the first vehicle from Kia that we're featuring that has NACS, and also the first vehicle I'm driving since the Teslas that we did a few years ago that have it. I'll talk about that a little bit more on our road test. But the major difference with this, because this is built in the US and now uses NACS, is the charge port is actually on the driver's side. It used to be on the passenger side. I think that was a better place for it personally. You'll have to let me know in the comments. I have not used a Tesla charging station in 4 or 5 years. I will use it when I drop this off. It won't be included in this video, unfortunately. But is it better to have it on that side of the car? Because for me, as far as I'm concerned, having it on the passenger side here in North America, where we drive on the right side of the road, means that if you were to park this on the road and there's a charging station on the sidewalk, the side of the road, it's easier to get to the charging port. So putting it on the other side, I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments what you think, why they're putting it over there. Is it easier to use the older Tesla stations that have these shorter cables? But again, just park in a different stall, right? I don't know, whatever. Let me know. Let's talk about the power numbers on this. This has a dual motor all-wheel drive setup, good for 320 horsepower, 446 pound-feet of torque. That comes from an 84 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery. And Kia says that this is good for about 435 kilometers with the GT line trim. I'm seeing a little bit more than that. This morning I woke up 465, but it's pretty good numbers overall for this generation of electric vehicle. All right, let's talk about the interior before we hit the road, because the interior has gotten a bit of a facelift as well. You would have to look at the old video that we did to kind of see most of the changes, but for the most part, it has been modernized a little bit here and there. We have a new center console garnish. Console itself is the same, but it's just the actual trim on it. It's kind of nice. Looks almost like brushed aluminium, but it's not. So I like that. We do have the curved display that we've been seeing from Kia now for a few years, with the gauge cluster and infotainment system the same size and curved a little bit more towards the driver. We have new dashboard material. It's kind of cool. Specific on this is the GT-Line version. And we also have an updated steering wheel. And then because we have the GT-Line, this is actually the 3-spoke steering wheel, also updated compared to what you could have gotten before. With the GT-Line, we also get the 2-tone interior. So we've got the white trim that goes around the outside of the seats. Some of the other features that we have on this vehicle, not necessarily exclusive to the GT-Line, but I just want to mention what you get at the fully loaded price point here. We have the updated head-up display. Kia says there's more information that comes on that. We have the digital rear view mirror, which is a nice thing to have, considering it's a little hard to see out of the back of this. We have the digital key system. I can't test it, but allows you to use your phone to unlock and drive the vehicle. Dual zone automatic climate control, heated and ventilated front seats, heated rear seats, and the Meridian surround sound audio system, which sounds pretty good overall. No complaints from it. Overall, interior, kind of familiar from what it was before. Much like a lot of the compacts in this space, you do feel a little cramped. You know, I do find, as somebody who's 6 foot tall and I'm a big guy, I am kind of at the maximum when it comes to the overall interior space here. It's not uncomfortable. It's not hard to get in or out of like some vehicles, some of these wedge-shaped vehicles, but it is a little on the smaller side compared to some of the other vehicles we've tested in this segment. And we've tested a lot of them now. There's a lot more that are on the market than there was 3 years ago. And speaking of which, I want to talk a little bit about the energy efficiency before we hit the road. That way I can tell you about how this compares. We completed our 100-kilometer test loop in this vehicle in eco mode with the driver-only HVAC running, which is a nice thing to do. 19.2 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. Now, how does that compare to the Chevrolet Equinox EV/RS all-wheel drive that I drove not long ago? So kind of similar conditions. That was actually a little bit better, 18.9 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So small difference there. And then the only other vehicle that I have tested on our test loop was the Nissan Ariya, the Platinum E-Force. That completed it in 21.9 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, but that was also at the beginning of December. So that might have affected the overall range. But when it comes to this and the Chevy Equinox, at least, pretty similar outdoor ambient temperatures, so it's not quite as efficient. I would like to see these numbers start to come down below 20 kilowatt hours. That's where I'd like to see them. But aside from that, I think it's time to hit the road, talk about how this vehicle drives, rides, and handles, and the reasons why you may or may not want to consider it if you're in the market for a new electric crossover. All right, my friends, we're on the road now. Energy economy is already out of the way, so let's talk a little bit about how this compares. As I mentioned, we've driven so many of the vehicles in this segment now. When I drove the EV6 last, all we had done was the Ford Mustang Mach-E and the Volkswagen ID4. Now, since then, a lot of other vehicles have come out. I've driven, as I mentioned, the Ariya and the Equinox. We've also featured the Toyota BZ4X, now known as the BZ. So we've done a couple of other vehicles in the segment, and then, you know, you've got like luxury vehicles and stuff. They don't really compare to this. You know, obviously it's $67,000 Canadian. It's not cheap, but it gets the job done. You get a pretty fully loaded vehicle. I mean, there really isn't anything that I'm missing here. You know, you're never going to really see ventilated seats in the rear in this segment. I don't think, at least not for a little while. So, you know, you've got all the space and comfort and conveniences that you need, all the ADAS systems. Kia's updated them a little bit for this model year, giving you some extra safety and security. So, yeah, I tested all of them. I mean, the only thing I guess you could be missing is if Kia and Hyundai do develop some sort of hands-free autonomous drive system, because one of the major changes with this over the one that we drove before is the automatic lane changing. I mean, I say automatic, but you start the turn signal. If you've got adaptive cruise control on, it will then kind of nudge you into that lane. It takes a little while, you know, maybe 6 or 7 flashes of your turn signal for it to complete it. And it's not super necessary. I mean, you really got to drive the car. You got to keep your hands on the wheel. So I find that maybe like 50% of the time I'm just doing the lane change myself, because it's quicker for me to do it than it is for the car. and then it'll pop up and say, oh, lane change system aborted because you've done it yourself. So some small tech changes like that. You can go on to Kia's website and see all of the new things that they've added safety wise. But like I said, it is pretty much on par with anything else on the market. So we like to see things like that. Now, overall power on this, I have had no problems. I've kept it in normal mode. The drive mode button's right here in the middle. So sport mode, whew, it pulls you up to speed very quick. Absolutely no issues there. We've got regen braking. You can turn on iPedal mode through the flappy paddles. As you can see, the vehicle is coming to a stop because I've got it on the maximum iPedal. And then if I were to change it back and do, say, a launch, whoa, there goes all my stuff. Extremely quick, right? Lots of horsepower, lots of torque. It's a small vehicle. It's a heavy vehicle, right? Batteries increased in size. But for the most part, you're getting a very well-rounded car. Now, I think this is more like a car than it is a crossover. I feel it sits a little bit lower. The roof line is lower. And I'm sitting kind of in a weird position in the sense that, if I'm sitting upright, I'm almost looking more into the roof line than I am with anything else. So I feel it's a little bit more car-like, but, I think it's a popular option for people. And you get a lot of kit. That's the main thing. So when I look at this compared to the other vehicles we've done, it's more of a wedge shape than it is, sort of that traditional compact crossover like the Toyota BZ4X or Subaru Solterra, their sister vehicles. The Mustang Mach-E even is a little bit more crossover oriented because this is that wedge shape. Your trunk space is a little bit more limited. No real issues if you've got groceries or things, but if you're going to be doing a little bit bigger hauling, not the greatest, but again, kind of in line with other vehicles in the segment. So overall, Kia's got a good package. Is it outdated now? I don't think so. For the most part, you're still getting decent charging. Maximum on this is 350 kilowatts. Good luck finding it. As I did mention, I will be trying a Tesla supercharger when I drop this off, so I can't talk about it now, but its maximum is 325 kilowatts. So that would get this charged up extremely quick, right? If you were at like 10%, wanted to get to 80, that should take like 10 minutes, I think, which is really good. Is it actually going to work? We don't know. So we'll see. But, home charging hasn't been an issue. I plug it in. I'm getting 7 kilowatts off my charger at home. Range is good. We're currently at 425, so the number has come back down at 97% to sort of where it should be based on the estimated range, but we are in sport mode. So if I put it back, if I go into eco mode, we're at 456. If I go into normal mode, 443. Not bad overall. These are good numbers. They're not great numbers, but they're pretty good overall in this segment. Build quality, I have no issues with. The ride, though, I'm a little surprised. I find it's a little bouncier than I would really like. We've gone over some not like really rough roads here during the week, but some little bumps and stuff, and I do feel like the rear end bounces a little bit more than I'd like it to. But overall, nothing to complain about. Steering and handling is good, right? Lots of body roll, but still overall, no issues there. So I like it. It's a good package. Would I buy this versus any of the other electric vehicles I've driven in this segment, though? And that's the real question, because for me, while I like the design and the performance and the price isn't terrible, and you're getting a lot of the features and everything that you want, I'm feeling that I'd like it to have a little bit more headspace, or maybe if the seats could go down a little bit more, I'd be a little bit happier with it. So, this would be in the top 3 for what I'd be considering for a compact electric vehicle. I think that something like the Nissan Ariya really does tick most of the boxes off for me. It has the same sort of issue where I feel I'm sitting a little too high and my headline is right at my visor here. So the Nissan Ariya is top 3 as well. And then the Hyundai IONIQ 5 would be the other in the top 3. And the best way to know whether or not you should be considering any of these vehicles is from today's sponsor, RateMyEV.com. It's the place where owners can give their feedback and thoughts on the electric vehicles that they've made the purchases on, so you can find out more about these. We only have these cars for a week. It's hard for us to really get to know how they are to live with on a lifetime basis, or at least the life of your financing or leasing options. But over at RateMyEV.com, you can find popular reviews on all sorts of different electric vehicles on the market, whether it's an EV6 or a Cadillac Escalade IQ. Whatever you're looking for, you'll probably find it there. We also encourage you to check them out if you have an electric vehicle and share your thoughts. I did that recently with my Focus Electric that I own and gave a pretty detailed review of how it was. So hopefully it'll help other people who, maybe don't have time to watch a 15-minute video, but want to know how it is on a long-term basis. So not only is it a great place for owners to share their thoughts, but also for buyers to find out way more information about these electric vehicles before they make their purchases. So big thanks to them for sponsoring this video. And as I said, check out ratemyev.com today. So a lot of good choices. There's a lot of really good vehicles in this segment now if you're looking for an electric vehicle. And I haven't really found anything that I dislike to the point that I really wouldn't buy it. One thing to note, much like the Chevy Equinox, the material used here on the dashboard can be a little too reflective. It's not as bad as it was on the Equinox, but I do find that under certain circumstances, if the sun is coming in at the right angle, it will reflect off the material on the dashboard and make it a little bit harder to see out as you're driving along, right? You want to have good visibility. So that's one thing to note. And then, these little touch buttons down here, there's nothing really wrong with them. At least we've got physical controls, to be able to go into your HVAC settings and maps and whatnot. It's just got to switch between them to get into the different modes. So, I mean, I know what they're doing with it. It's fine. It's better than it being built in completely to the infotainment system. But still, that's like the only other small complaint. Aside from that, though, I really don't have anything to complain about. Kia has thought, about how these vehicles are going to be used, as they always do. They try to figure out, the best case to be able to provide the most features and most convenience for people, whether they're on their own, they've got 3 or 4 people in here. This vehicle does do the trick. So I've been impressed with it. I like the facelift and I love the color. Excellent choice. Definitely want to get this color. But I would recommend taking a look at the video that we did back in 2022 to see how the Kia EV6 has evolved over the last couple of years. You can also check out the video James did in 23 on the GT, the actual performance version of this vehicle, or like mid-performance, right? Because it wasn't quite as crazy as the IONIQ 5N, but still get more power, a little bit more bits on it. So if you're curious about like an older model, those are some great options. And then, as always, if you have any questions about this car or anything else that we're doing here on Test Drive, please get to us in the comments. We do try to get back to everybody as quickly as we can. If you are not a subscriber, we encourage you to join us. We just hit 73,000 subscribers, and we'd love to get to 100,000. So please hit that subscribe button if you like what we're doing here to catch all the latest car reviews that we're doing here on PRN Test Drive. Appreciate you watching, and until next time, take care.